Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of August the 12th till 18th, 2024. This week is going to be in a certain way nothing all that unusual because the chaos, the intensity, the unpredictability in so very many domains, for example, the financial, banking, economic domain is going to be spiking. It is going to be very, very unpredictable. Then politically, without a shadow of a doubt. And again, very tumultuous in events that are going to hit news big time. It doesn't really matter of their nature. May it be some bad news, because we know there's plentiful, like truly full of prosperity with that. But it can, might, of course, be artistic, something more cultural, of course, science and technology and space travel and aviation. Sorry. And speaking about aviation, well, as I said in the previous horoscopes, that especially the Aquarius full moon that is going to take place on the 19th of August, so not this week, but the week that follows, it even begins the week. So that indicates news or revelation or etc. A full moon. So shedding light and awareness, especially in Aquarius, on something. And amongst that something, because something means so very many probabilities that can take place and can play out due to the multi-dimensional nature of the astrological energies. And I do believe that you kind of understand what I'm speaking about. And amongst those, well, something that is pretty highlighted by more than one element in the sky, and I'm not going to go into detail. If you want the detail, just check out the full moon report for the 19th of August. They indicate aviation technology, and two big news that are already developing. Well, on one hand, the tragedy that happened not so long ago, yesterday or a day before, in Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, or some neighboring country there. And then the International Space Station, as in how to get the astronauts that are waiting back home, because there is, I'm not sure what kind of setback or obstacle blockage with the transport. So the shuttle, what, something like that. And needless to say, the military kind of aviation news every second about that. So you can, and Mars, the principle of war, right? In the air sign of Gemini, air, and the duality of the air. The duality, one is without a doubt passenger and exploration and knowledge, exploring the air and beyond even space, because the opposite of Gemini is Sagittarius, which is the actually space. But the opposite or the other end of the spectrum is where we can use it for a lot of bad Mars, military warfare, missiles, rockets, drones in the air. So there's that side, and it hits the news, and Jupiter expands it, especially this week. So the main event of this week is going to be the Jupiter and Mars conjunction, which I'm going to speak about in just a little bit when we get there. This perfects around the 14th of August, so yes. But these events are going to be playing out non-stop, tumultuously. Again, the tumultuous communication and news and information, and it's almost like a certain kind of sleep deprivation, if you uh, want to use the symbolism. Why? Well, sleep is Pisces, right? And we have Saturn there. Saturn can say limit the maybe not necessarily the sleep time, because the sign that Saturn is in also influences Saturn. And Pisces is boundless, borderless water, ethereal. Saturn, how, to which degree can Saturn limit that? But Saturn square Jupiter and Mars this week as well. This is the other big thing. You may not feel rested at all, or sleep, or the sleep dream world might be so vivid, so restless, that we might wake up more sleepy than and more tired than we went to bed. Or for some people, this can be actually sleep disturbances, not necessarily just insomnia, because that's the most common, but all sorts of stuff like that. So there's that. But symbolically speaking, this is also where almost the soul cannot rest. This energy keeps us in a rather restless state, regardless of how it plays out in our lives, even if it plays out in the most wonderful way, in the most delightful way. Success. Well, Jupiter and Mars together, in a very personal context, of course, can, especially, let's imagine that they speak in a trine with another, someone's Saturn, let's say. Well, you can imagine that for that person, that either work paying off, big workload, but which equals business and money and getting things done, but that can also be so tiring and exhausting. The tumultuous and the overwhelm basically is the same, regardless of the nature of this energy, how it plays out in our personal lives. But I do believe something that all of us have in common is the tumultuous information that we don't even want to know anymore. However, we need to be aware. So the awareness, this constant awareness, is a bit what is preventing our souls from resting, from sleeping. And you can imagine the collective is in such a massive pivotal moment of world change, and especially the phase or part or the layer of the world change of times, the new paradigm, which we are tasked collectively to write ourselves. So it sucks all, not all. So it basically everyone who is alive on the planet is connected visibly or invisibly to this. Even if someone is in total ignorance, their nervous system, the electromagnetic fields of the heart and the brain and stuff like that will converse, or they always converse with the Earth and the Earth's core magnetic field. So there's an exchange of information there. So it doesn't really matter if the person is aware or not. The inner animal, that inner primal part of us is aware. So hence the restlessness, and we need to write this. We are writing this chapter for ourselves through our choices and reactions and what is going on in the present moment. So that sucks us in it. That a part of our energy, regardless if we are in a true sense aware and connected to this or not, even if we're totally oblivious and ignorant, still a part of our energy goes there. So the fatigue, the overwhelm, this period may feel for some very burdensome even, or tumultuous communication, right? And people everywhere. Gemini, Mars, and Jupiter conjunct in it. So, of course. And you might imagine that this is definitely the time when No one can feel lonely. Very, very wrong. The Saturn square in Pisces. Sometimes it is exactly this flow of people energy, really, communication or whatever, in any, like, person to person, your community, your workplace, or one area of your life, and then collectively internet and the news. And then there is the other side of life, the official, where everyone has to deal with some authority, some officiality, even if just to, I don't know, pay some taxes or one's personal finances. Everyone has some authority connection in their lives with a member of, a representation of the state's power. That's what I want to say, the Capricorn energy. So there's that, changes there, instability there. Everyone feels this in their own special way. So this week is going to be like a crescendo. It is going to grow and grow and grow. And a culmination moment is, you guessed it, next week, the 19th of August, the full moon, and whatever is like a showdown, basically. Whatever is gonna play out then, or don't get me wrong, it can play out this week, and the full moon just puts it on the pedestal. The full moon put all spotlight on it maximally. So this week is important also because it can start telling the story that is going to be illuminated by that full moon next week. So it's growing, it's coming together. So let us begin the horoscope. At the beginning of the week, immediately, um, we can see that Jupiter and Mars are very close. They're not exactly conjunct yet, but they're preparing. And also the square they, both of them, hold with Saturn is also growing and perfecting. Fortunately, Mars will perfect its square with Saturn this week. And then by the time we get to the full moon, Jupiter square with Saturn will be exact, but Mars will already be in a waning square. So its intensity will start to fade away, but not all that much yet. So we're not out of the woods because Mars will be pretty close to Jupiter on the 19th. If I'm not mistaken, somewhere at 19 degrees of Gemini, where the square perfects at 17 degrees of Gemini, Pisces. Um, so anyway, so this week we are starting to feel the square perfecting itself. Now, personally speaking, I spoke about this in previous recordings, and I do believe I also have a special video for this. The Jupiter and Saturn squared, our the themes and how they can play out collectively and also in our lives. So I'm just gonna say certain keywords here. Collectively speaking, what is justice, real justice, Jupiter, and what is against it? So debates about the law, the morality of the law, uh, and Saturn in Pisces, the distant past, how it goes back to years and years, maybe hundreds of years. Who did what? History, the ancestors, how it reverberates in modern times in political and, how should I say, borders. And I'm not gonna detail this because you get what I mean. So we're gonna be seeing that. And the law debated in the sense that, is a law corrupt or is a law very immoral? Pisces, Saturn in Pisces. Morality is very, very important because Saturn, that's the structure, that's the solidity. and in the sign of Pisces, Saturn's end, right? It has to terminate immorality. And Jupiter in Gemini, well, that's the modus operandi. Jupiter is the planet of the law. It is debilitated in Gemini because it's furthest away from its home sign of Sagittarius, right? But that, in this sense, favors it because it can look at the nitty gritty. Because in Sagittarius, would it be home as long as the principle of the law is rooted in morality and fairness and whatnot, all is good. In Gemini, however, okay, that's one thing where it's rooted. Let's see what happens in practical application, the nitty gritty. And that's where the problems immediately lie. And then the Saturn and Jupiter square. If that doesn't meet morality at whatsoever, well, then something must be done. Then there comes Mars, because you must not forget Mars is part of this, especially in this opening square, the first of these squares. Mars is very much part of it. Law regarding Mars, war, aggression, action, even in courts of justice, battle in courts of justice. Gemini, the two sides, the aggressor, the accuser and the accused, etc., etc. And then Saturn in Pisces, a judge, for example. But there is another judge other than Saturn, Pluto in 0 degrees of Aquarius, where Saturn and Jupiter held their conjunction. So this square is so important and symbolic because Pluto emphasizes it like through a laser beam. It really insists on it. So the other judge that other than Saturn is the people, the community, the human collective, Aquarius, and Pluto, their power, and their power matters. What they believe matter very, very much. So this is how it, of course, other expressions of this energy, technology, good side, bad side, moral side, immoral side. That's basically also Jupiter in Gemini. What is done with technology? And Mars, actually, the action. Um, Pluto in Aquarius, technology. Uranus being the big star of the 19th of August full moon, super full moon, because it these squares, so the two squares point directly at Uranus. So Uranus technology and the future and all of that. So that is what should be kept in the future and what is way too extreme or immoral or something like that. Then what is the limit of exploration or travel or the timing issue? Because this energy is also where we have a project, we have a plan, we have the resources, we built it already, but is it wise to initiate now? And this, for example, in usage of new revolutionary space technology, for example, and we must not forget all of this under Mercury retrograde. So is it a good time to test this technology, that technology, propulsion, travel, stuff with travel, even laws with travel, borders, stuff like that? So, and another element here, the past, Pisces, right? Versus the present. Tradition, how it used to be or should be based on, you get me? And then versus how it actually is now, Gemini. So this will play out collectively in a certain way. And we must not worry that the square, tension, okay. We get the tension, we get the conflicting energies, the friction, but ultimately the square is meant to come up with a solution, adaptation, mutable square. a way to go around it, or a way to please both sides, or a way to see simultaneously both sides of the coin. So this energy wants solution, and we must not forget that the biggest core is not necessarily just what's going on in the present, because what's going on in the present in, let's say, energy, seed of intention, thought, emotion, principle, idea, you get me, was seeded, started in 21st December 2020, both individually and collectively. The meeting of Saturn and Jupiter, the great conjunction at 0 degrees of Aquarius, the opening of a new paradigm. How did we open up to something new? Where did that journey take us? Because we reached the first milestone of that journey. On one hand, we have to take a retrospective look back at how well we done and whatever happened. So this is definitely part of everyone's Saturn and Jupiter square. To take a look back at whatever happened in our lives from December 2020 onwards, our choices, our how truthful we were, how I don't know, we made choices, options, acted Mars based on self-knowledge, inner wisdom, self-respect, but then also Pisces, compassion, respect for another. All of us are just one, really, let's not forget. And then Gemini is also about that. Another person is just like a brother, a sister, a sibling. That's the highest quality of Gemini. We're all brothers and sisters here. So how did this energy play out in your life? And collectively as well. Collectively, the brother sister energy, neighbors. That's Gemini rules neighbors, actually. And we see that neighbors are not getting along very well in some parts of the world, and in other parts of the world, they're falling in love with each other. So every region with their own karmic specific and historical, political, cultural, etc. specific. But we see the themes play out, the duality and things happening with it. And of course, Pisces and Jupiter. Jupiter is the ancient ruling planet of Pisces, religion, especially the dark side of the religions, any religion, any organized where there's an authority and hierarchy, not free spirituality in that sense, Saturn in Pisces. So there's conflict there, there's debates, discussions, and then another expression of this energy, Pisces, the illusion, right? Gemini, the media, the fact, the real, what happened, when the actuality. We see the battle there in so very many ways. Everything's a lie, manipulation, whose side of events, the dual nature of both Pisces and Gemini. So collectively we see it. Individually, however, where on one hand, where did 0 degree of Aquarius fall into your chart? That is very important, as in the big picture wise. For example, first house, self, something about the self-image, genetic inheritance, something coming online, or you change your specific, then second house, self-worth, value, money, finances, your possessions, third house, communication, siblings, neighbors, travel, learning, figuring things out, speculation, communication, sharing news, fourth house, real estate house, family, family of origin, ancestors, even Pisces as ancestors, but the genealogy of your family, fourth house, fifth house, children, passion, love, creativity, sensuality, let's say, sex, stuff. And you can imagine that Leo is very highlighted in this period. 6th house, physical body, digestive tract, work, daily routine, sacrifice, service. 7th house, one-on-one alliance, relationships, contracts, partnerships, enemies. 8th house, transformation, any changes, psychology, um, checking in with yourself as being your own psychoanalyst in that sense, a deep inner checkup, for example, a deep introspection, healing traumas, physical body. The 8th house is also health house, for example, so it can be health related stuff where you're taking care of something or upgrading your health and your routines and etc etc. And it can be inheritance, the 9th house, higher education, anything to do with knowledge, learning, earning a degree, mastery, teaching, law, legal system, uh, judicial system, and of course, faith and your own philosophy and higher thinking, divine downloads. 10th house, soul path, career, and so much more. 11th house, hopes and dreams, your place in society, friends, how loved you feel. And 12th house, of course, the hidden unconscious, the soul, the spiritual house. So, where does this 0 degree of Aquarius fall to your chart? Because the big picture, the main visage is that, and then the where does this 17 degree of Pisces Gemini fall into your chart as well, because that's the first milestone. This is what you are living right now and are probably gonna live, and this goes all the way to December next year, 2025. So this is not just a one-off energy. However, the way these planets speak on the 19th, when it perfects, is unique in its own right. As I said, Mars is one of the factors which is going to be there. So that's the big picture. And individually speaking, this can very much be options. What is better, what is not, what is worth it, what is not, what is moral, what is not, what is more authentic to me, what do I love, and what do I love is very much part of this. On one hand, Venus in Virgo, Venus who really needs to look at the very down to earth practical side of things and not the higher meaning. And then Mercury retrograde still in Virgo at the beginning of the week. Analysis. And together, Venus and Mercury, criticism, right? But constructive reality check type of criticism. Because on the 19th, when the square perfects, well, Venus is going to be part of that. It's going to be a T square. So, as I said, criticism, but we need to make sure that it's constructive criticism, especially if it's self-criticism or something we analyze with very, very truthful eyes. Truthful is okay, but we must make sure on one hand it's not seen through the lens of self-victimization, Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, to restrict that. Not feeling way too excessively Gemini, sorry for ourselves. Injustice, Jupiter. If there's any kind of imbalance, injustice, odds don't favor you or odds favor more people, other whatever more than you, this not to bring out toxicity. It really requires our mature and spiritual side, Pisces, Saturn in Pisces. Then it can basically play out as, again, something that we initiated, maybe after that 21st December 2020. It got to a certain point and now it's at crossroads. It will go forward because it's, let's say, a success. But you need to choose the path forward, and it's so hard because maybe both choices, or maybe not both, many choices, all of them are just good. They present different opportunities, and in your imagination, again, Pisces or Aquarius, in thought and anticipation, all of them lead to somewhere good, somewhere very you're actually curious about. What do you choose first? What step do you take? Who do you consult? Who do you ask for advice? Or why not matters of love, let's say? Because Gemini is communication, but it's flirty, right? And the moon is delighted when it's in Gemini. Why do I mention the moon? Because the moon this week will oppose the the Mars and Jupiter conjunction in Gemini. So the moon won't be happy about something. So, but Venus also likes being in the sign of Gemini because it's playful, it is airy, it is imaginative. So you can imagine, how do you put this when there's a lot of this? How do you put it into perspective so you can make a choice? Who do you, as I said, ask for advice? It can also play out as, let me, job opportunity or any business negotiation or project, something that started out as a path that you already chosen leads to a big fork in the road where you need another choice, a new specialization, or something within the road that you already took. So, but of course, Mars and Jupiter, this can also be big conflict. This can also be moments of crisis. This can also be something came to its end, Saturn. That's a fact. It's not going anywhere. Pluto also in Aquarius, activating that 0 degree. And what will you to do? What will you do to adapt to the situation? Mutable square. In feeling, in thought, in perception. Remember, no self-victimization, no looking at things through a really doomy and gloomy lens. Neither is looking at things through a silly, unrooted in reality optimistic glass, where the toxic positivity, for example, or denial, or it needs to be realistic, but still very self-supported and deeply rooted into faith. That's not easy to pull off. It's not easy. It doesn't matter if it's like a crisis or if it's like something internal that just boils, especially in this period, because this energy, not just the Jupiter Saturn, everything in the sky, the whole setup of the week, and this Mercury retrograde season, this August basically, kind of forces people, everyone, to show their true colors, to show their true hearts. And when I say heart, I don't mean the sacred heart. A heart can be selfish. A heart can beat passionately for the self and the ego. So, you know what I mean. When I say heart, in this context, I don't, it's not guaranteed that it's something beautiful, but heart is heart. Honesty, what's in the heart, that is honest. And it reveals it from people, from everyone, even I'm included. So this energy plays out. It's almost like something triggers us to show our true feelings within our hearts, good or bad or whatever that may be, or cast our judgments. Because this energy is also where we may try our hardest to be non-judgmental, but we only succeed at things where the judgment truly is not cast. When it's cast within the soul, even if we are blocking it out, especially mentally, not to say it, not to feel it, not to uh, focus on it. the unconscious will still push it out one way or another. So this is really a period of big truths. So it will change the landscape of relationships. Black Moon Lilith getting very close to the South Node. That's when all poison is out. And I really shouldn't laugh about this because you can imagine this is also internationally. Now moving on, after this very long story, let me just show you very quickly the key dates. One of them is the 14th, when the Jupiter and Mars conjunction is exact. So again, personally expect a lot of thoughts. Expect a lot of, sometimes even judgments, because of the Saturn square. You know what I mean? Okay, the square is not exact to the degree, but it's powerful. So Saturn really triggers it. If something is, as I said, judged by your soul, that will be stay on your mind. So in a strong mental activity, regardless if it's conflict, verbal battle, choices, options, figuring stuff out, what's true, what's not true, what's right or wrong, do I love it or not. Venus is not yet part of the turmoil, but she is in Mercury's sign of Virgo. Mercury rules Gemini, so Mercury's retrograde also in Virgo at the time of this conjunction. So long story short, this is a very powerful mercurial energy. So choices and criticism, you can imagine in relationships. Criticism is not going to go very well. It's not going to be received very well. So, and am I worth it or not? Is this job worth it or not? But we must not forget that all of us, everyone in that area of their lives where, in this case, 22 degree of Leo falls, is going to be really, really a bit self-centered, a bit, the ego shows itself. Why? 22 degree of Leo is the notorious degree which is nicknamed one's own worst enemy. So the self, when the self sabotages the self, when the ego kind of gets out of control. And this degree is only important in a birth chart, especially in certain configurations. So it's usually not a big deal, and astrologers don't use it really. But I sense that the sun, be collective sun, that on that day, on this 14th, given the fact that we still have the Mars and Jupiter conjunction, this is gonna be where the self really expresses itself. So a lot of contradiction, a lot of opinion, a lot of judgment, a lot of back and forth, and this is gonna be a conflictual day. And of course, Mercury at 0 degree of Virgo, retrograde. The truth, the hard to face criticism rooted in actual reality, but it can wound. Fortunately, there's also a healing side of this. When we say something out and it exits our heart, and we feel so much better, even if we might get a slap or two. Due to that, the sun trines Chiron retrograde. So speaking certain big things out that were on our minds and hearts is liberating. It is healing. It is also fated, so to speak. So there's that part of the energy. And Mercury, and in between the 14th, 15th, conjuncts Regulus. Again, something about presidents, kings, royalty, VIPs, important people, leaders You get me, hits the world news, the world stage. And this might be something that happened a week ago. Oh, just give me a moment. Let me check. Maybe I have it in my notes. When Mercury was at 29 degree of so the 15th of August. Or is this? No, sorry, that wasn't correct. Because the 15th of August is actually this week's horoscope. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not gonna Mercury retrograde. It really got my brain fog on. So roughly a week before, news, and you can see news about the presidential election debates in America, news about in the Middle East, this leader, that president, that supreme leader, this prime minister. So this was tumultuous everywhere. And then stars and celebrities, and then the Olympics. So this will be ongoing, especially on the 14th, 15th. And let's go to the 15th now. On one hand, we can see that the Sun Chiron trine perfects. Then Mercury, as I said, is on Regulus, 29 degree of Leo. But no, it's an erratic Mercury retrograde. So this is where digging up the past, retaking that annoying discussion, opening up Pandora's box, informationally speaking. You did this, you did that, especially where it was heartache, heartbreak, hurting feelings, inner child. So this is not going to be a very peaceful day, but it can be a very important day because not peaceful, but where does the strive for peace lead us? That will be important. Because, yes, contradictory discussions, but they will get us somewhere. They will lead somewhere. It doesn't have to be aggressive. We just need to take in the other person's truths and feelings, which are not debatable. Sun, Trine, Chiron. This is where it needs to lead us, both individually and I do believe now, especially collectively. Two sides having to acknowledge each other's point of view or feelings, and this day is also special because the moon, after it opposed Jupiter and Mars, still conjunct, so it sunk in some news, some communication. Now it conjuncts the galactic center, while this Sun Chiron trine is online. So, on one hand, either galactic news, space travel news, something hits the news either from the sky, space, or aviation, or the law, legislation, or religion, or something is there. It evokes feelings. And magically speaking, esoterically speaking, this is going to be full of divine downloads. So expect a lot of spirit or, synchronicity type of communication from the universe. On the 17th, we have Venus conjunct dwarf planet Orcus. This is important because Orcus is like a Pluto. The honesty, the raw truth. And this is also very positive because unlike Pluto, Orcus mends. Orcus restores to its original form. So this is very, very good in order to look at what needs to be done for something, anything to be restored, healed, revived. You get what I'm saying. But it's not very easy energy. And also, 16th is tensionate, very, very tensionate, because on one hand, the Jupiter-Mars conjunction is still ongoing. Mercury holds a second square with Uranus. News, shock, surprises, unexpected, breakdown, things don't go as we planned, change of dates, being late, weird timing, thing, of course, financial energy as well. Why? Because Venus rules Taurus, and Venus is in Mercury's sign of Virgo, and Uranus is in Venus's sign of Taurus. So where I'm going with this, and Mercury is in the sun sign, with the sun being home, and the sun and Mercury are traveling towards embracing each other, hugging each other towards a conjunction. So news, communication, negotiation, dialogues, figuring stuff out, brainstorming, epiphanies, truths. So even though this is tension, and this also holds conflict and shocking news, accidents, breakdown, stuff on the all the bad stuff, this also holds a lot of good stuff. The breakthrough, the negotiation gets somewhere, surprise, surprise, an alternative solution, someone jumps in to help, finding value where you thought that there isn't any. So a lot of good can happen as well. And moving on to the 17th, well, the 17th is actually where still the Mercury and Uranus square is ongoing, and the Sun trines Aries. Now, this is where this is rebellion. This is big uprising. Spiritually speaking, it's awakening, because the Aquarius full moon is awakening, soul awakening, quantum awakening. But that doesn't necessarily have to mean anything positive on a 3D level, if you know what I mean. So this is very rebellious. This is truly demanding awareness, attention from masses collectively, Aries. And on top of that, Gemini in itself is quite a rebellious sign. It has an Aquarian decan, right? Mars and Jupiter are activate, not the Aquarian decan, because this is in the second decan, more Libra ruled decan of Gemini, but that's also because partnerships, the other, diplomacy, justice. So the rebellious nature of Gemini, and then Leo, Aries, and Aries. Aries and Aries with the sun in Leo. That's very, very fiery. That's very, very, how should I say, a cry out for sovereignty, a cry out for the truth to be heard, one's own truth. Mercury, being in the vicinity, spreads the word, of course, big time. And there's another minor energy there, Vesta, goddess of the sacred flame, sacred heart, because Leo is heart, and the truth, Mercury of the heart, because this is like a triple conjunction, Sun, Vesta, Mercury. And you guessed it, Vesta is also going to be part of the full moon in Aquarius. So illuminating the full moon actually, along with Mercury and the Sun. So that means youth, students, Mercury, learning, travel, drivers, transport. This also means an awakening of the heart to protect Vesta, to protect family, to protect children, to protect youth. So there is going to be a big uprising, big movement, one way or another. And then if we also include Venus in the sign of Virgo, Everything is felt, Venus, seen, and perceived emotionally or evaluating through very, very strong critical eyes, because Venus is already opposing Saturn. So reality check. And Venus is not doing so well, not just because she's in the opposite of her exaltation sign, so Virgo, where her exaltation sign is Pisces, she's opposite to that. But Saturn, the reality check, the harshness, the end of that which Venus doesn't like anymore. So this energy one has us seeking endings to eliminate from our lives that which we don't like anymore, don't believe anymore, don't serve us anymore, don't resonate with us anymore. So this is gonna be in a collective way, you can imagine. This is big energy, big energy. So yeah, but all of this is leading towards that Aquarius full moon, which is going to be very, very, as I said earlier, awakening, strongly awakening in so very many ways. Without a doubt, that is going to be like a quantum activation within us, where we will feel like the past, present, and future are one, where we're going to actually feel like one being, where our, let's say, childhood selves, young teenager self, young man, woman self, etc., is gonna feel like it's so very alive within us now. And for some people, this will connect them to their previous lives, where it's not gonna feel like a memory as it usually does. It's gonna feel like you lived that even now, because in a quantum world, that's not the past. That's just simultaneously happening at the same time. So you're also that. So a lot of weirdnesses as well, and a lot of weird physical symptoms, because the Schumann resonance will spike, solar flares, as a brilliant astrologer Raoul suggested in a comment. Absolutely. The activity of the sun, either flares or magnetic or ionic activity, is going to be a massive influence as well. And calamities with Uranus being activated by the sun and Mercury. So yeah, we can expect all of that. So my advice is, there's going to be conflict and things triggering us. Let's be our most zen selves possible. But when we have to speak our truth, when we have to speak our hearts of hearts, we have to. But we can try it in the most gentle and self-contained manner, because the best way is to look at everything from the viewpoint of divine neutrality, because divine neutrality is the, how should I say, the counter energy when passion, Leo, tries to really suck us in and consume it. May that passion be anger, love, lust, delight, or frustration, not having what you desire. That's also. So we must not allow these inner fires to consume us. We need to apply divine neutrality. And that's also Saturn in Pisces, because one of the expressions of Pisces is total ignorance, total apathy, nothing there, no feeling, no reaction, total ignorance. So, yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and I'm wishing everyone a lot of patience, self containment, self discipline, wisdom, and self knowledge and faith for next week.